welcome once again to the Cine-Files, where we return to our discussion of Fight Club. After the narrator accepts the same chemical burn as Tyler Durden, it's time to go sell some soap.
Tyler sold his soap to department stores at $20 a bar. God knows what they charged.
This is the best soap.
Why, thank you, Susan.
It was beautiful. We were selling rich women their own fat asses back to them.
So gross. We're back at work, and the boss has found the copy of the Fight Club rules on the copier. Yeah. So if you're making copies of the rules, and the first rule says, don't talk about Fight Club, you've broken the rule.
Yeah.
And then Ed goes into this very scary speech.
I'd be very, very careful who you talk to about that, because the person who wrote that is dangerous. And this button-down Oxford cloth psycho might just snap and then stalk from office to office with an Armalite AR-10 carbine gas-powered semi-automatic weapon, pumping round after round into colleagues and co-workers. This might be someone you've known for years. Someone very, very close to you.
So a couple things about that. First thing is they did like 50 takes. So one of the things about Fincher is Fincher's like Kubrick. Like he shot on this, he shot probably 3 times as much film as most directors shoot on a feature.
Good God.
And he shot it to the point where Ed is going, I don't know what you want.
Yeah.
He got really lost in it. And then they still weren't happy with it, so they did a reshoot. And what he really wanted was he wanted Ed Norton to be really scary. He wanted to be really scare the boss. Okay. And now they shot it again, and they did a really scary one. And they put that in the movie, and they're doing test screenings. And right before the test screenings, the Columbine shooting happened.
Oh, shit.
Yeah. And it was too scary.
Wow.
And so they went back to one of the earlier takes that was more neutral.
Gotcha.
Which is what's in the film.
It's still pretty scary.
It's really scary.
Even though it's a neutral one. Yeah.
Well, and this is the important thing in this film is like there are people who looked at this movie and went, yes, this is right. Tyler Durden is right. Fight Club is right. This is what we have to be.
Right.
What we have to say is this is a movie about terrorism.
Yes.
It's about indoctrination. It's about horrible
Cults.
Violence. Cults.
Yeah.
And this moment, that burning the hand, and then this speech.
Yeah.
This is the turn.
Yeah. It's initiation.
Yeah.
He initiated himself into his own cult.
Right. And now he's like become a dangerous person that's going to hurt a lot of other people.
And here's the thing too, Steve, he left that in the copier on purpose. That's him setting fire to his apartment again.
Yep.
Because he's setting fire to his job.
Yeah.
Self-destruction.
And of course, what he says about this is Tyler's words coming out of my mouth.
Yeah.
Yeah. But you're Tyler, dude. And he gets a call from Marla.
Compliance and liability.
My tit's gonna rot off.
Will you excuse me? I need to take this.
And wants him to come examine her breast. Man, this is a weird scene. We come in and he does this breast examination and he's being very cold to her. Mm-hmm. And she clearly has called him.
Yes.
Because she wants him and she loves him on some level.
Well, she's attracted to him and she's interested in.
Right.
Yeah.
But she doesn't know that she's with the person who doesn't know they've had sex.
Right.
You know, it's such a weird, and of course, the first time we've seen the movie, we don't know that either. We think her behavior is totally bizarre, as opposed to she's with her boyfriend and she called him for afternoon sex on some level.
Wow, this is a strong term. You're saying boyfriend. I don't think they're boyfriend girlfriend at all.
I don't know.
I think she's a girl who has a lot of obviously self-esteem issues.
You think?
So for her, having a guy mistreat her like this is what she sees love as. So it makes sense to her. Even though she's upset about it, she still keeps coming back because this may have been the only
relationship,
or symbol of love she's ever had from a man.
Well, and Tyler Durden, the guy that she's been dealing with, is the most charismatic, brilliant, interesting, fascinating. I mean, and amazing in the sack,
right?
As we're going to hear later. But he rejects her. He's walking out. By the way, in the graffiti on the wall behind him, as he walks out of her building, it says, "Myself, myself," which I just think. And who does he run into? But Bob.
Yeah, Bob.
And Bob is so happy to see him. Cornelius.
Eating those Krispy Kremes.
And he's not going to the support group anymore because he's found something better.
Yeah.
No, I got something so much better now.
Really? What is it?
Well, first rule is I'm not supposed to talk about it. And the second rule is I'm not supposed to talk about it. And the third rule is...
Bob, I'm a member. Look at my face, Bob.
And then Bob says, have you heard about the guy who founded it?
Supposedly, he was born in a mental institution, and he sleeps only 1 hour a night. He's a great man. Do you know about Tyler Durden?
And there's this great reaction of like, I founded it.
Yeah, he's jealous.
He's jealous
Yeah.
of himself.
But also we find out in this scene, Steve, that they've been having these other nights of Fight Club.
Other nights.
So he only thought it was Saturday nights.
Yep.
And now he's like, wait, who's doing them on Tuesdays and Thursdays?
Right.
Boom.
Well, and it can't be him because Bob would know that he was Tyler Durden.
Right.
And Bob doesn't know that yet. So there are other people there. And now, of course, we have Ed Norton fight Bob, and he just gets
great.
wiped out.
Like some kind of animal.
I love the moment after where he says, I'm sorry, did I hurt you? It's like, yeah, you did.
He's like some gorilla yelling over.
Yeah. And now Brad makes a speech. This is one of the great speeches.
We've all been raised on television to believe that one day we'd all be millionaires and movie gods and rock stars. But we won't. We're slowly learning that fact. And we're very, very pissed off.
You know, we have this.
Yeah.
Everybody's special. You're all special.
Snowflakes.
They're all, and it's like, no, that's not true. We've been lied to.
Okay.
We're not all going to be movie stars and rock stars.
True.
You can't actually be anything you want.
Right.
I mean, if you believe I have no choices in life, well, then you probably won't have any.
Right.
You do have choices. You can have effect on your life, but
You have to decide how much you're willing to commit to whatever it is you think you are going to be. That's the thing at the end of the day, right? I always thought I was going to make it as an actor on camera, be successful, be a series.
I always thought I was going to
show.
make it as a director.
Right.
Yeah.
For me, doing that independent film with Andre a few years ago, when I saw myself on screen, that was the day my dream died. And I went home in such an incredible state of euphoria and peace. Because for once, I could make that decision on my own. For once, I didn't have to slog through the half in, half out. Should I not? Can I deal with this rejection? Do I need to be on the set? Feelings that constantly permeated my life for the first few years that I was in LA. And to let that go and to focus on what I do now was such a joy. And so, yes, we can all be that, but logically, it wouldn't be possible to everybody be a movie star, everybody be a successful director, everybody. So you got to find where you fit, and hopefully, in pursuit of what you want, you will find what you're supposed to do, and that's what your hope for in life.
Well, to some degree, your description is sort of hitting bottom.
Yes.
By the way,
Yeah.
And like for me, it was the failure of the assistants and all the frustrations with the shark film. Like I was like, okay, I put everything I had into those things, and they didn't. And it was kind of going, oh, I'm not going to be that, right. And it was a painful process. Right. But like, and as you say, I mean, I think you're a very talented person. I think I'm a very talented person. You and I both worked hard in lots of different ways. Mm-hmm. Is that and I've met people who are way more talented than me who worked super hard and got nowhere.
Yep.
And so it's like, and there are a whole bunch of people who aren't very talented, and it's like you're not going to be a movie star and a rock star. Yep. I mean, that's honestly, I tell my students this regularly. Like, this is really hard. The odds are you're going to fail, and the reason I'm telling you that is because everyone I know. I only know one or two people who have succeeded in reaching what they thought their dreams were. Yeah. And the two I'm thinking of right now are both miserable.
Yeah.
Because it's not really a lot of fun out there.
Because whatever level you reach, you want that next level.
Well, and you find out that it didn't solve all the other problems. Yeah. Your relationship issues and your daddy issues and your horrible insecurities and your alcoholism and your depression and all that shit's still there.
Right.
You're just really rich and famous now.
Yeah.
And so now everybody is observing all of your messed up. You don't even have privacy to hide behind.
Well, that's what's so great about him saying we're in a spiritual war.
Yeah, we're in a spiritual war.
Right.
It's a great point. Well, and this is really this is a Generation X movie. Mm-hmm. I mean, this is the children of the baby boomers. And just as he starts to go into the rules, in walks Lou, who owns the bar. What the fuck is going on here?
Who the fuck are you?
And he wants him out. And Tyler's kind of,
he's sassing him. Yeah.
And for a reason, because Lou punches him.
You hear me now? No, I didn't quite catch that, Lou.
Do you understand now? Punches him.
Okay, I got it. Shit, I lost it.
And then Tyler starts laughing.
It's a great Brad Pitt laugh. Jesus.
Oh, it is crazy and creepy.
That's right, Luke. Get it out.
Shut
Oh, yeah!
And he jumps on top of him and starts bleeding into his mouth. It is one of the grossest things in all of film. And
his henchman is so petrified.
oh, well, what do you do?
Yeah, he just starts to grab him and drag him. He doesn't even shoot anybody.
No.
He's so petrified. He has a gun, but he doesn't shoot anybody. He's so petrified. He just starts grabbing Tyler / the narrator by the back of his pants and trying to yank him off the guy. But Tyler won't let go until Lou says, "Yes, you can use the
stay here."
basement." Because they're not making any money. He's not charging anybody
No.
anything. So
Well, and it's like, okay, you got your gun, and maybe you have 12 shots in that gun or
Yeah.
something. You're surrounded by all these people, and you just suddenly went, I'm in a crazy place.
Yes.
I don't know what the call is here.
Right.
And so after this, Tyler comes up with the idea of, I have a homework assignment.
You're gonna go out, you're gonna start a fight with a total stranger. And you're gonna lose.
this is great.
It's a really funny montage of people being horrible
Yeah.
to strangers.
Yeah.
Well, and again, this is where we're sort of going like, it's totally fun and you are laughing at it. But then if you think about it, you're like, well, this is awful.
Yeah, but it's done in but it's presented in a way that's funny, so
Really
it works
funny.
for the movie. But also, in some subversive way, it's trying to get you out of your comfort zone,
Yeah.
right? So yeah,
We're back at work.
especially the priest, which is
The
brilliant.
priest is the funniest one.
That's the
And I
best
think someone said that the priest is later on at the fight
He
club.
is. He is. He joins. Yeah.
Yeah. So clearly, I'm not going to say about what that says about priests, but
I don't think it's the same about. It's the same about human beings.
yeah. We're back at work. He gets called into the office, and the boss thinks, I'm going to dress this guy down.
Oh no, he walks into the office himself, doesn't he, or does he get called in? I feel like he walks in himself because we need to talk, and he goes, "Okay."
Oh, I think you're right.
yeah, I think he walks in himself and
Yeah.
says, "We need to," because he's done being at that job, so he's going to make it all happen.
Yeah, and he's like giving the normal list of absenteeism, appearance,
Yeah.
he's up for review. I am Jack's complete lack of surprise. And he starts with blackmailing him. He's like, I know all the stuff about these cars.
Are you threatening me?
No,
Get the fuck out of here. You're
I
fired.
have a better solution. You keep me on the payroll as an outside consultant. And in exchange for my salary, my job will be never to tell people these things that I know. I don't even have to come into the office. I can do this job from home.
Boss calls security, and he looks down at, and Ed looks down at his hand, which starts to shake. And then he beats the crap out of himself.
Which is very reminiscent to Liar Liar.
Oh, totally.
He's in the bathroom beating himself up.
And-
What are you doing? Kicking my ass.
And Ed does a fantastic job physically. It's really funny. And apparently, like, he really threw himself through the glass table, and
No
that people got hurt on this movie.
That's Ed Norton. No surprise.
Yeah,
He's
he
a
went
method
for it.
motherfucker.
One interesting thing, this scene used to be before Lou, and they moved it after,
Oh,
so it
good.
becomes more like one of the homework assignments.
Yep. Well,
It's really brilliant.
and the thing is, the whole time I'm watching the movie, this scene this time, I'm like, oh, I can't wait to tell Steve, like, well, there's no way you could have proved that because there's no, like, scars
Right.
on the. But then I forgot that at the end, he's holding his
holding him.
hands and he's on his knees in front of him right when the security
saying,
guys
"Please
come
don't
through."
hurt me.
Yeah, it's brilliant.
It's brilliant. And off he walks.
Telephone, computer, fax machine, 52 weekly paychecks, and 48 airline flight coupons. We now had corporate sponsorship.
Hilarious. There was more homework assignments. They're messing up videotapes. They're taking baseball bats to the cars. And of course, they're taking a Range Rover, BMW, and that new VW Beetle. It's all cars that they felt were pretentious.
Yep. Yeah, the scoff at
Yeah.
the VW Beetle is hilarious.
Switching the thing on the tire shredders. They're pouring gas on something. And that's where you start to go, wait, what are they about to do?
Yeah.
Because the turn of this isn't funny,
Right.
like shredded my
This is
tires.
terror. This is domestic terrorism.
Right. We are
in essence.
starting to move into domestic terrorism. And then Tyler pulls a gun.
Yeah.
Um,
But this scene is a very interesting scene, Steve.
yeah, pulls some guy out of a liquor store or something, puts him and says, "You're going to die." Asks him what he dreamt of doing.
What did you want to be, Raymond K. Hessel? The question, Raymond, was what did you want to be?
Answer him, Raymond. Jesus.
And he basically takes his driver's license and says,
I know where you live. If you're not on your way to becoming a veterinarian in 6 weeks, you will be dead.
And Ed, although of course they're the same person, is saying, "Oh my God, that was horrible."
Right.
And he said,
Tomorrow will be the most beautiful day of Raymond Castle's life. His breakfast will taste better than any meal you and I have ever tasted.
I find these moments are interesting, Steve, because of how Fincher stages them. When one is upset with what the other one is doing, it is in the background. So in essence, reflecting the mind. You know, when
Yes.
or helping it, like when Norton is getting himself stitched up, Tyler is way in the back, sitting down, telling him to say you fell down the stairs. In this scene, Norton is way in the back, watching Tyler doing what he's doing, and in essence, that's what's happening in his mind as well. And I've had interactions with fans like this on Twitter, like this, not with a gun, but with my mouth or with my texting. Where I say that I push them out of their, like they come at me a certain way and I push them out of their comfort zone and go like, what about this? And what about this? And what about this? And then there's a whole nother different exchange that happens there. And watching this happen in the film was really interesting to see. Because I initially was like, why is he doing this? And then you're like, well, no, because we're all like suffering, or a lot of people are suffering in this quiet loneliness because they didn't have the fear, the life or death fear they need to have to push for what they want to be in life. And too many people settle, and too many people go into a comfort where they're unhappy, you know, and that's what he was doing. Now, whether this is the right way to do it is, of course, up for debate.
Well,
but he's trying to get this guy to be like, take charge of your life. Do what you want to do. Work in a convenience store is not where you want to end up.
well, here's the thing about this. Is Tyler is a seductive person.
Yeah.
And the way this is presented, you go, wow. And you believe what he says. Right. But we don't know what happened to this guy.
We don't.
And the thing is you taking it, like if you have this thought, having a traumatic experience can scare you enough to change your life and make your life better.
Sure.
Having a traumatic experience can also fuck up your life and you never get past that moment.
Absolutely.
You know, and so Tyler is dictating for other people based on what his experience is. This is what's right for you.
It's true.
And this is what the whole rest of the movie is going to be.
Yeah.
I know what's right for you. You know, it's like the thing about this movie is it makes an observation, which I think is true, which is we're run by this culture in which we don't have freedom. We're making choices. We don't know why we're making those choices. Yeah. These things aren't fulfilling to us. We're labeling ourselves with these products, blah, blah, blah. And I think those observations are totally true. And then Tyler comes up with a solution.
Yeah.
Therefore, we must tear all of this down, and I'm going to do it for everybody else.
Yeah.
That's where it's fucked up.
I agree.
Well, it's like, and this is why this is a movie about terrorism.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, you are lost and you discover a place, and that place is in Islam.
Right.
Or white supremacy.
Right.
Or communism.
Whatever,
or
maybe.
fascism.
Yeah.
And you go, this is the solution.
Yeah.
Let me cure the rest of the world.
I need to feel like I belong. I've been lost. Here are people who've been found. From what I can see, I want what they want, and I want to feel a sense of community. Therefore, we're going to do this. And you see that in all places now, online, everywhere. These groups of people that create these separate, where they have exchanges with each other on Twitter that you don't have access to unless you want to be part of that group, and you get invited in. And this happens all the time. And, you know, it's legendary here in Hollywood where people have like these text exchanges. There's this like legendary text exchange of famous people who are like text each other and talk about what they're going to talk about in public. And there's a text exchange with Republicans. There are conservatives here in Hollywood who have a separate text exchange. When you become a famous conservative, you are asked to join this, and then you get told talking points as well. So it's an interesting little world, this desire for community, man.
Well, and my experience has been, I'm sure you've seen this too.
Yeah.
When someone gets religion, whichever way it was, they started doing yoga, they joined AA, they did
CrossFit,
whatever it is, they were like, this is it.
Yeah, yeah.
And then they want to be evangelical and teach you about that thing. And when that is taken to extreme, we get to where we are now, because the next thing that happens is a computer store blows up.
Yep.
You know, and this is where you go, whoa, wait a minute. This seems kind of weird. And now Brad Pitt turns towards camera.
You are not your job. You're not how much money you have in the bank. You're not the car you drive. You're not the contents of your wallet. You're not your fucking khakis. You're the all-singing, all-dancing crap of the world.
I mean, it is like really, we're into indoctrination now.
Well, The Matrix was about, once again, this late 90s stuff
Yeah.
is what this is all about. This disconnecting from this idea of a corporate culture or a spoon-fed culture that makes you fat, happy, sad. Even WALL-E has shades of this.
Absolutely.
As a Pixar film, this idea of being comfortable and fat and happy, and not only fat, like physically fat, like from the excesses of the world. And so you are comfortable. And so you don't play a hand and you're apathetic. And we see that changing in a way now with our current, I don't want to get too political, but our current president has motivated people on both sides to either participate more. And this is an interesting thing. Yeah.
Yeah. We see Marla find out that Chloe's dead.
Yeah.
That affects him on some level. And it honestly affects me. And then this is the first time that Ed decides, no, he doesn't kick her out. And he goes, let's talk for a second. And he's asking her, what are you getting out of this? Yeah. And I love what he says. He says,
I don't know. I don't understand. I mean, why does a weaker person need to latch on to a strong person? What is that?
and there's such a weird thing of like, who are you talking about right now?
Yeah.
And then he says this thing, us. And she jumps on us like, what do you mean us? Who's us? And at that moment, we start to hear all these noises.
Yes, because it's Tyler Durden down there
Banging on this brain.
He's like,
don't do it.
He's like, shut the fuck up.
And again, Marla's trying to find out what's going on. And Tyler tells him what to say.
This conversation is over.
And he gets rid of her. And he goes down to talk to Tyler, and there's a bunch of bunk beds.
Yeah.
He's doing all sorts of... This is a big house, by the way.
Yes, it is.
And there's a guy in front of the house. You're too young. And he gives the narrator instructions.
Right. If the applicant is young, tell him he's too young. Old, too old, fat, too fat.
Applicant?
If the applicant then waits for 3 days without food, shelter, or encouragement, he may then enter and begin his training.
Training for what?
Indoctrination.
Yep.
This is pure indoctrination.
It is. It is. And this happens in the military, too.
Absolutely.
You're told all these things. So when I served, those are things they tell you in basic.
Yep.
You're not going to make it, private. You're not strong enough. You
got to break them down.
Yeah. You're not going to
break down the individuality.
You're not going to make it. You should quit now. Do you want me to, like the first
You want me to call your mom?
The first week is them, you want me to call your mom? You want me to march you down to the bus?
Yeah.
That's the first week of them challenging you constantly.
You said no drill sergeant or whatever. Yeah.
Exactly. But you do this with your students too, in a way, with the directing students. You say to them, you might not make it because you want to weed out the people that don't really want to fight for it in a way. So it's like, it's that kind of presentation.
Yeah. I mean,
I'm not saying in a negative way.
No. I wouldn't describe it as weeding out because it's also like
you're warning them too.
Yeah, it's like, no, really, this is, I know a lot of miserable people. Go through something else.
Yeah.
And what's funny, the narrator jumps right on board.
Sooner or later, we all became what Tyler wanted us to be.
And now next to him, Bob has showed up.
Bob!
There's Bob standing there, and we go over. So clearly, by the way, this has been publicized because he asks him, you have 2 black shirts, 2 black boots, you have money, burial money. And the guy has all these things.
Yep.
So this started a while ago. He lets the guy in, turns to Bob.
It's a cult.
Yeah. Too old, fat man, and your tits are too big. And Bob turns to go, and the narrator chases after him.
Yeah.
Now, here's the thing. He didn't know Cornelius is Tyler Durden. Right. Then he discovers Cornelius is Tyler Durden.
Mm-hmm.
Then he comes to Tyler Durden's house to be in the army. Tyler Durden yells at him.
Mm-hmm.
And then as he walks away, Tyler Durden immediately comes to him and says, no, man, just wait here for a few days and it's going to be cool.
Right.
That's what actually happened.
Yeah.
We assume.
Yeah.
Guys are now shaving their heads. And we hear the first time, by the way, we hear this thing about you're a space monkey.
Mm-hmm.
Space monkeys, because that is a person who has no control over their destiny.
Right.
And they're probably going to blow up. You're probably going to die. Total lack of control.
I thought it was a 12 Monkeys reference, but I'm not sure. Yeah.
Oh, what year did 12 Monkeys come out?
I thought
it's 90. It's earlier. It's 96.
Yeah, I thought it was 96.
Yeah.
So I wonder.
Could be.
Listen up, maggots. You are not special. You are not a beautiful or unique snowflake.
Here's what I think. I think that in raising kids and in the ideas about humans, we kind of go from pole to pole of you're special, you're unique, you're awesome. We're going to be really supportive to being tough on kids and you got to perform and do well.
Yeah.
And that kids who grew up in an environment that were like the middle stepchildren of history, Generation X, who had parents who were frequently absentee because they were the baby boomer parents and who didn't give them the love and affection. Now we're in the generation of and all the love
Yeah.
and all the affection.
Yeah.
And I wonder if this generation is going to grow up and give their kids a harder time, you know?
I think so.
And what I think is, no, we should be in the middle.
Yeah.
The middle is the place. Like, you're not everything's perfect and wonderful and everybody's a winner.
Yeah.
And you're not kicked in the ass and told you're terrible all the time. Something in the middle.
Yeah.
Some support, some discipline.
I used to be on the side of the participation trophy side. Like I used to be on that side, but I've been changing my stance on that and going back to the other side where no, life is tough.
Life is tough.
At some point, coddling does not help us. No. You know, you have to fight for what you want in life, and no one's going to hand it to you. Nothing infuriates me more than when I see some of these people who walk into this business, this industry that I'm in now, and think they should be handed everything because of their gender or their color or the way they look at things. No, earn it, fight for it. We're all in the pit fighting for it, and come out and you'll be stronger as a critic, analyst, whatever, if you fight for it. But expecting it to be handed to you, fuck off with that, man.
Well, it's like Michael Jordan was born with amazing talent.
Yeah.
And also worked harder than just about anybody else.
And got cut from his JV team.
Yeah.
What does that tell you?
Well, and that experience of getting cut from the JV team is one of the key motivators in his life. And that by saying everybody wins a trophy, you were robbing Michael Jordan of that experience that made him Michael Jordan.
Right.
And it's like, and this is where I go back to, there's balance.
Yeah.
Is that it's not that you get the shit kicked out of you all the time and that's good for you. Right. And it's not that you win all the time and that's good for you. You know, it's funny. So my dad loved games. Games played all the time in my house.
Right.
He never let me win. There was no letting,
right.
Never.
My dad either. Oh
Never,
my God.
Never.
Yeah.
And and it didn't matter what the game was. Like it could be Candyland, it could be, Monopoly, it could be ping pong, it could be whatever it was. My dad wiped me out and frequently told me what I was doing wrong. And my dad would kind of talk smack. And he was a brilliant game player.
Yeah.
I mean, just unbelievable dominoes, hearts, bridge, everything. He's just really, really smart. And it gave me I had no idea games could be played for fun. I mean, it's not that I didn't enjoy them, but I didn't understand. Like I remember I went to someone's house and we're playing ping pong and they said, and I said, okay, we warmed up a little. I was like, okay, so we rally for serve. And they said, no, we don't need to keep score. Let's just play for fun. And I'm like, for fun?
Yeah.
How do you know who wins? Like I literally didn't have the concept.
Yeah.
And it took me a long time to go like, oh no, that's great. And to actually turn down that competitive instinct and go like, let's let this just happen. But on the other hand, I also now know parents who always let their kids win at everything. And I'm like, well, you're teaching them, you're complete. And it was funny when I finally asked my dad, and this was actually shortly before he died, but I said, Dad, you never let me win. And what he said is I felt that if I let you win at something, that would be lying to you.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, the truth is you can't beat me, and therefore to let you win would be a lie.
Right.
And my feeling is it's in the middle. I totally let Jax win, and I totally make him aware of what it is to lose. And sometimes if he really challenges me, because my son has gotten snotty, you lost again. I'm like, really? And then I'll wipe him out.
Right.
Because it's like, no, you have to know the reality here.
Yeah.
We can wrestle and you can pin me, but you have to know that I am bigger and stronger, and you can't actually do that if I really try, so that he can have the fun and the pleasure of winning, and also have to learn to deal with losing. I mean, that's what I think.
That's a good thing.
But it's a hard balance.
Of course. Welcome to parenting.
Yeah, no shit. And so we're talking about him building an army, and he says this thing again.
We are the all-singing, all-dancing crap of the world. We are all part of the same compost heap.
Compost heap is interesting because we are all garbage. We're all fat to be rendered. That he keeps coming back to the you are nothing.
Right.
I don't think Tyler Durden believes you have a soul.
Probably not. Well, I mean, the comments about God earlier when he's burning his hand, that tells you right there he doesn't believe in that kind of stuff.
He wants to tear all that stuff down.
Yep.
You're just meat.
You're not a precious little snowflake.
Why was Tyler building an army? To what purpose? And what greater good? In Tyler we trusted. And now Ed Norton, our narrator, comes back into the house, and there's this whole group of people, and they are celebrating, and they're passing some beer around. And of course, he just wants to know, what are we celebrating? And Bob smiles at him, and Jared Leto takes a beer, and they say, let me help you, sir. We get this word, sir, which I think is really important, directed at Ed Norton's character. And because, of course, what's happening is they don't see this strange narrator guy.
Right.
They see Tyler Durden.
Yeah, they don't see the two. They see just Tyler Durden.
That's Tyler Durden.
But are they aware like that there's two? They're not aware there's two Tyler Durdens yet.
No, I don't think so.
They're getting there, but they're not.
I don't know
100%
that they're ever aware that they're two Tyler Durdens.
I think they're aware before it all falls apart. But you see them looking around at each other.
Well,
like,
that's
why is he asking?
Well,
what
because
we're doing?
because he starts asking about what's going on, and then we have these news scenes that have vandalism, and they talk about some underground boxing ring, and there's a big fire, and we see this building where they made this smiley face out of a fire, and they're all laughing, and of course the narrator is going, "What the fuck is this?"
Sir, the first rule of Project Mayhem is you do not ask questions, sir.
Right.
And it's such a weird scene because, and this is why this movie bears scrutiny of watching it over and over and over again. Because the first time you see it, we're in the Ed Norton character's world of not knowing what happened.
Right.
But after you know the twist, well, then you're watching it going, here are these guys where their general is yelling at them over the thing that he ordered them to do.
Right.
It is bizarre.
Well, it's just what happens in cults, isn't it? Eventually, the person becomes. Now, this is a person who's bipolar, obviously, or a very severe case of schizophrenia.
It's split personality.
Split personality, yeah. But this is what happens. People become so powerful at some point. They're unaware of the things they're doing from one moment to the next. You hear about this when you read or watch documentaries about cults. Eventually, the leader doesn't remember the stuff they said from a week ago that everyone else is doing, and then completely changes it. So you're completely on the whim of that person.
Well, and their sense of their own grandiosity. It's funny. I just listened to, I don't know if you listened to the 30 for 30 podcast. I didn't realize there was
the Bikram one. I want to listen to the Bikram one.
I just listened to it.
All of them?
All of them.
All the episodes? Okay.
Holy fuck.
Yeah?
It is so disturbing. And it's just what you were just talking about.
Yeah.
Because they go through the beginnings of Bikram Yoga and his charisma and how many lives he changed and how amazing it was. And then they go through what he started to do with the women in the... it literally it made me sick to my stomach to listen to the whole thing.
It's very tough to be changing people's lives and not get caught up. Like, it depends on how you are built emotionally or mentally to be able to handle that kind of, like you said, grandiosity and like overwhelming amount of people saying you're great at what you do.
Well, and what's interesting about Fight Club is our main character's solution to that problem is to literally split himself in two.
Yeah.
The grandiose side is the Tyler Durden side, and the other guy is completely removed, and all the human insecurities and all the other stuff is the narrator side.
And he's rolling with it, right? Because the grandiose side, he didn't create the grandiose side to create a movement. The grandiose side was created to deal with life,
right?
And to deal with the fact that he was not able to handle his life, even as, how can I say this? As simple as his life is, to a degree it is, even he couldn't handle how simple his life was. He knew something was wrong. Yeah. And so this other personality had to be created to kind of call him out on it.
And the next thing we do is there's a speech going on. It's like mayor and police commissioner and all these people. And we see all of our guys in white tuxedos. And it's funny because the thing I'm thinking about now is, they're going to like pee in the soup or something, because that's what Tyler Durden did earlier, but that's not what's about to go on.
No, we're a whole nother level now.
This guy goes off to pee and they grab him.
But you know who that is, right? The police commissioner. Okay.
Yeah, it's the police commissioner that was saying we're going to go after this underground boxing ring.
Swaggering on television.
Yeah, these guys goes off to pee and they grab him. They pull him into the bathroom. They have masks on. Ed Norton enters last, and then you get this crazy shot. And they strip him. They tape him up. They apparently put rubber bands on his balls, which means they're about to castrate him.
Yep.
And then in comes Brad Pitt's face at this weird angle. And he says,
"Look, the people you are after are the people you depend on. We cook your meals. We haul your trash. We connect your calls. We drive your ambulances. We guard you while you sleep. Do not fuck with us."
That is scary.
But also what most rebellions are built on.
Absolutely.
Yeah. This idea that and we see it happening now, and this anger in the lower classes, this anger in the people who are not making as much the squeezed middle class in this country. We see this anger seething underneath on both sides.
Yeah.
And so they're finding who to blame for this, and it's usually the people with the money or the elite, quote unquote.
After they leave the building, Tyler Durden gives some attention to Jared Leto, and we have with Ed Norton watching, and he says, "I am Jackson Flame's sense of rejection." And again, I'm wondering, like, what actually happened? Ed Norton, I mean, because there's only one person. So did he give attention to Jared Leto?
Yes.
And then it's inside some part of himself hated the person that he was giving attention to?
Yes.
It's so bizarre.
How bizarre is it for Jared Leto?
Oh, I know.
You just stroked my head, and now you're about to beat me to a pulp.
Right, which is in our next scene.
Right.
You know, Ed Norton takes a hit, and then he just beats the crap out of Jared Leto in this horrible, brutal way. And you see the crowd cheering, and then you see them recoiling, and then it goes on and on.
Well, the hand in the face trying to stop him is the worst.
Oh, yeah.
That's like the last line of defense of a human being is just this weak attempt to stop him.
And Tyler asks him, "Where'd you go, psycho boy?"
Yeah.
And his response is, "I felt like destroying something beautiful." There's a lot in there.
But yeah, what does that mean? Does he mean just Jared Leto? I think it means the relationship
Well, and it's
between him and Brad Pitt.
and Tyler's going to want to destroy the world. Right. I mean, you know, we've got a lot of and there's the relationship with Marla. You know,
right.
yeah. And also, where did you go, psycho boy? Well, this is one voice in a guy's head talking to another voice in the guy's head. You know, so calling him psycho boy is like a lot of stuff going on.
Yeah.
And up comes a car, which I guess has gotten out of long-term parking at the airport, and they get into the car, and this drive is weird.
The rainy drive.
Yeah. And there are two Project Mayhem soldiers in the back seat.
Yep.
By the way, this is all shot on a soundstage. This is all.
I hope so.
Yeah.
Fuck.
This is all what's called poor man's process. So they're basically bouncing the car up and down, have little projectors in the back, and are shining lights in their faces. And the conversation that happens here is, you know, Ed Norton confronting Tyler Durden about, why am I not involved? Why do I not? What's going on?
You and I started Fight Club together. Do you remember that? It's as much mine as it is yours, you know.
Is this about you and me?
Yeah, I thought we were doing this together.
You're missing the point. This does not belong to us. We are not special.
Fuck that. You should have told me.
And at the same time, Tyler Durden is drifting that car into oncoming traffic, and
Hey, Tyler!
he asks, you know, what do you wish before you die? And what's interesting is both the Project Mayhem guys, they have answers.
Yeah.
Right away.
Paint a self-portrait. Build a house.
So this is a question that's happened before. Ed Norton doesn't have an answer.
Right.
And he asks, if you were to die right now, what would you feel about your life? And they almost crash. He lets go of the wheel. And again, I go back to what's really happening in this scene, which is there's only one guy in the front seat. Is he talking out loud? I think some of this, a lot of this is being said. The conversation with Ed Norton is just silent. And then he'll just randomly ask, what do you wish you would do before you die? And then he lets go of the steering wheel.
Right.
And there's just two guys in the back seat.
It's a weird kind of life lesson he's trying to teach him, right? This idea of letting go.
Yeah.
I mean, Tyler is the worst tough love teacher you're ever going to find in your entire life, because he's all about exploring the boundaries of what we're supposed to be doing, the societal constructs that we have all agreed to in an unconscious way and sometimes conscious way. And here he's telling him, you got to let go. If you want to have this change in your life, you're going to have to let go to this degree where you're willing to risk your life.
Yep.
And that's what he's telling him, which is why he's letting go of the wheel, because he was grabbing onto it and they hit each other, all this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And you're right. The guys in the back look terrified.
Yeah. And so there's this part of the personality is fighting for survival, and the other part is fighting to let go. And Tyler's line, which is just what you've been saying. Yeah. And this really, the first part is the most interesting.
Why do you think I blew up your condo? Hitting bottom isn't a weekend retreat. It's not a goddamn seminar. Stop trying to control everything and just let go.
That's the writer talking to people. And this is to America, or to whoever's watching it. This is what, 2000? What year is this film? 2002?
It's 98.
Jesus Christ, 98. Just when this whole explosion of psychology and therapy and inner child, remember inner child stuff? That was a whole thing. That had been a hashtag all over Twitter if Twitter was around in 98. And so this is I think the author, Chuck Palahniuk, saying this to people, like, it isn't a seminar. It isn't something you can go and do on a weekend. If you really want to change your life, you got to let go, really let go. That's what he's saying. He's not saying like in a soft way. He's saying you got to really let go and risk losing it all. Because if you don't, how are you going to change?
First of all, sorry, it's 99.
99, sorry.
And second of all,
that's 1 year. It's not that different.
But second of all, it's also, and this is the weird thing about this book, it's this seemingly good advice taken to an extreme degree.
Yes.
Because the degree of letting go here is not only you have a good chance of dying, but killing other people. And it's completely... So it's like taking that good advice. That's I think a lot of the key to this movie is that in a lot of ways, there's stuff in here where you go, yes, this is the truth. And then where it goes is horrible.
Yep.
And then where it goes this time is they're going to crash that car. By the way they did this was the car is basically on a whole gimbal that could spin around. So it was a brutal thing inside that car as they're spinning around and bouncing them all over the place.
Wow.
And then what's really funny is they crash the car, and then after it's crashed, Brad Pitt pulls Ed Norton out of the driver's seat.
Mm-hmm.
And the continuity people, the people who are quality controlling the movie, say this is a continuity error. Brad Pitt was driving. This is wrong. And they keep trying to explain, like, no, you don't get it. There is no Brad Pitt.
Yeah, there is no Brad Pitt.
Yeah.
The guys in the backseat, do they live or die? I think they live, don't they?
They live.
Yeah. Because they slowly put on their seatbelts.
Right.
So they're not willing to let go.
No.
Not 100%.
Not 100%.
Not yet.
Well, yeah. I mean,
they're not the advanced class, Steve, is what I'm saying.
So we're back home, and again, Tyler says more of his philosophy. He says,
In the world I see, you're stalking out through the damn canyon forest around the ruins of Rockefeller Center. You'll wear leather clothes that will last you the rest of your life. And when you look down, you'll see tiny figures pounding corn, laying strips of venison in the empty carpool lane of some abandoned superhighway.
this is what Tyler Durden actually wants. He wants the destruction of all civilization.
Sure.
And this is this thing that I keep thinking about is the difference between being able to observe the problems in the world and the problems in our life, and the difference between that and the ability to solve them. Is like, it's easy to point at the world and say, that's fucked up in whatever way you want. But the solutions that Tyler Durden comes up with, those aren't going to make it better.
No, but at least he's taking action.
Well, that's what he would say.
Yeah. I mean, apathy is the language of the devil. And so it's like what he's doing is at least putting some skin in the game, where other people are like, and I'm guilty of this myself. Other people spew on Twitter all this stuff, but never do anything. So he's saying, you can talk all you want. What are you doing?
Sure.
I'm not saying he's right.
Yeah, but what he's
I'm
doing,
not saying he's
when
right.
you blow up a city.
Well, sure. I mean, yeah, but I mean,
sometimes doing something is not actually the right thing.
But this is of course. I'm not saying I'm not advocating what he's doing is correct. I'm
think
saying
you just did.
I'm just saying that this is why he's the leader, because he's actually doing something.
Absolutely.
And all these people behind him have been afraid to do something about it, and they're waiting for someone to open the door.
Yeah.
And then Tyler was gone.
And we go back to this refrain of,
was I asleep? Had I slept?
and I love as he's walking through the empty house now, there's a moment where he closes the door, and on the back side of the door, which we don't know if he ever saw, was filled with licenses, which means that they went out and did that thing they did to that guy who wanted to be a veterinarian over and over and over again.
Yep.
And the narrator, he might not even remember any of them.
No.
Yeah, it's very upsetting.
This movie really bothers you.
I love this movie.
Yes, you do.
I love this movie, but this is where it's a movie is the more you look around the corners of it, you go like, oh, what's actually happening here is really disturbing.
Sure.
Okay. and now he's walking around and there's all these Project Mayhem guys, and they're all repeating these Tyler Durden phrases.
Yeah.
You are not a snowflake. You are not, you are the
How
all-seeing-
ironic.
Yeah.
You are not a snowflake. How ironic.
Yeah. And when he walks through, they're all just silent around him.
Yeah.
And it means that he, as Tyler Durden, has told them something to not talk to him.
Right.
That's
your first clue that
this
something is amiss.
Well, this is and this is the sequence where it really becomes, I don't remember if I figured it out before I was supposed to figure it out. I don't remember.
Certainly didn't.
But watching it now, it's really obvious.
Oh, yeah.
And we see Jared Leto, and he is all beat to crap.
It's uncomfortable how he looks.
And he just says, it's all under control, sir. And then we get this quote.
My father dumped me. Tyler dumped me. I am Jack's broken heart.
And here's what David Fincher said about this. He says that what the narrator must do in the course of this movie is he must kill his father, kill his God, and kill his teacher.
Damn.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
not literally.
No. Well, I mean, what is Tyler to him?
Right.
What is his father? What? And yes, he doesn't literally have to kill his father, but in murdering, like, I don't know. There's a lot of weird symbolism in here.
It's a little Doors action.
Yeah. Marla shows up and she asks about who all the people are and asks what's going on. And his response is, he's not here. What?
Tyler isn't here. Tyler went away. Tyler's gone.
And she walks away.
Yeah. Because she doesn't want to be part of this lunacy anymore. I think she realizes that he's like, what does this mean to her? Like the Tyler thing, like what is that all about?
Well, could you imagine, like, if I went up to Karen and Karen said, Karen's not here, Karen gone.
Right.
What does that mean?
Well, if you had been sleeping with this other version of Karen, and there have been two versions of Karen, like how aware is Marla of the two versions of Tyler and the narrator?
Because there's a difference between knowing that someone has a completely fucked up personality, where 1 minute they're nice to you and 1 minute they're an asshole.
Yeah.
And knowing that they actually aren't recognizing that there are two, that they aren't identifying as two different people.
Well, some of us have dated or been in relationships with people who are completely different in the bedroom than they are outside of the bedroom.
Right.
Right?
Well, I haven't, but of course. I started dating my wife in 1991. But I've heard that such a thing is possible.
Yeah, I dated a girl a few years ago. I'm not going to get too deep into the story. I dated a girl for a few years ago, sweet as pie. Loved soft rock, enjoyed cuddling, had a beautiful bulldog. She was sweet. We get in the bedroom and she's the general in the army. Like, it was insane. Come get some. Come get yours is literally quote for quote verbatim what she said to me. She was on top of me. We're having sex, and then she rolls over and she goes, "Come get some." And I was like, "What is happening?" It was really strange.
Well, and how weird would it be to realize later on that actually
that's a whole other person,
that these were different people who didn't know each other.
Well, let me tell you, it felt like it sometimes.
Well, we never know. You might have dated Tyler Durden.
Yeah, maybe the female version of Tyler Durden.
There's gunshots.
Yeah,
and in come the Project Mayhem folks. And they're describing what happened and that Bob got shot. They were blowing up a fountain and then a police started shooting and Bob got shot in the head. And then this horrible moment where he pulls off the mask and out comes some brains.
Terrible.
Yeah. And he wigs out on them.
You're running around in ski masks trying to blow things up? What did you think was gonna happen?
And they're kind of like, well, we have to get rid of the body. And there's this moment is so amazing to me.
It's a cult moment. It's absolutely a cult moment.
And he's talking about Bob and they say, oh, we don't, in Project Mayhem, we don't have names. And Ed Norton's response is, no, this is Robert Paulson. He's my friend. And they take that in. And of course, they're talking to Tyler Durden.
Right.
And they go, oh, I get it. Mm-hmm. After you're dead, we can have names. His name is Robert Paulson.
His name is Robert Paulson. His name is Robert Paulson.
Come on, guys,
His
please,
name
stop it.
is Robert Paulson. His name is Robert Paulson. His name is Robert Paulson.
This is all over with.
His name is Robert Paulson. His name is Robert Paulson.
Right. And that becomes this chant.
Mantra.
Mantra. Yeah. And it is so, and it's so funny. Like, and he says it's like they're morons. Like these are a bunch of idiots.
Yeah.
And there's some truth there.
Well, yes. But this is like I was saying, this is the cult thing, right? Here's something that's completely wrong. This guy got shot in the head. You should be taking him to the hospital or alerting his
and before
next
that,
of kin.
They destroyed a whole bunch of public and private property.
Of course. But as it's progressing, the stakes are getting higher.
Yeah.
Therefore, your commitment to the cause must be even more fervent.
Yes.
And so anything wrong that happens, you have to find a way to excuse it and make it look great.
Yep.
And so you see this happening in this moment because they're all chanting for Paulson because the other option is to say, this is fucked up. We need to get out of this.
Right.
But once you're this knee deep into it, it's really hard to turn the psychology around. And we're seeing this now with these people breaking out of Scientology, these people breaking out of the NXIVM stuff that's happening with Allison Mack and that Ranieri guy. Like, you're reading these stories and you're just like, Jesus Christ. Like, this is This is how deep you can get lost in how deep this thing really goes.
Well, in any, violent endeavor, it's like, I personally believe that the war in Afghanistan is lost, that there isn't a solution to the war in Afghanistan that there's not a winning situation.
Right.
But how do you say to the soldiers who have lost their lives and lost their buddy lives and been wounded and injured and risked and say, you know what, we're just going to walk away.
Yeah.
Because then it's like, well, what did I fight for? Or you think of the war in Iraq, where I believe that we attacked under false pretenses. But you don't want to say to a bunch of people who lost their lives, oh, by the way, there was no reason to do that.
Yeah.
That's horrible.
That's humanity, man. That's being a human being.
Yeah.
We don't have all the answers.
So our narrator's now looking around and he finds all these airplane stubs, these travel stubs that apparently Tyler Durden, in all the name of Tyler Durden, that he's done a lot of traveling.
Been busy that time.
Yeah. So he starts getting on a plane and we go into this montage. And again, it's so clear what is actually happening when you watch it the second time, because he says,
Every city I went to, as soon as I set foot off the plane, I knew a Fight Club was close.
and he walks into a place and someone says, I wish I could help you, sir, and winks. And the reason, of course, because he was just there.
Yeah.
He's been there.
Every single place he's going, he's already been there. And that's what he says, I think. He says,
he does.
I had a feeling of deja vu or something like that. Yeah, I feel like I'd been there before.
And he goes into another place, and the guy says,
I'm not exposed to speak any such information to you, nor would I, even if I had said information you want at this juncture, be able.
You're a moron.
And again, he says, was I asleep? Have I slept? And then, was Tyler my bad dream, or am I Tyler's? The first time you see it, you don't pick up on it.
Nope.
And the second time, it's like, oh my God, he's saying it the whole time. Everywhere he goes, he can smell the old blood and the sweat. And he feels like he's just one step behind him.
Right.
And I mean, who knows what's even happening? He could fly to a place, walk into a bar as Tyler, walk out of the bar, walk right back in as the narrator.
Sure.
5 minutes later.
Sure.
Who knows? And he finds this guy with this rig on his head that was like obviously had a neck injury
from the fighting.
Yeah. And he might be the dumbest of our Project Mayhem. And he goes, you were here last week asking how security is. It's tight as a drum, sir. Who do you think I am? Is this a test? No, it's not a test. Well, you're Mr. Durden.
You're the one who gave me this.
And he shows him the burn on his hand.
Please return your seat backs to their full, upright, and locked position.
And this is a great moment.
Yeah.
Because the first time Tyler showed up was on a plane.
Yep.
Therefore, everything connects back to plane terminology.
Well, and it was the moment he thought of the plane crash is the moment he sees Tyler Durden.
Yes.
So he goes back to his hotel, and who does he call? But Marla.
Yeah.
Marla, it's me.
Have we ever done it?
Done what?
Have we ever had sex?
What kind of stupid question is that?
And I love his response. Too stupid because the answer is yes or no. And finally, she just lays it out.
You fuck me, then snub me. You love me, you hate me. You show me a sensitive side, then you turn into a total asshole. Is that a pretty accurate description of our relationship, Tyler?
We have just lost cabin pressure.
At this point in the movie theater, you're going, oh, shit.
Have you ever tried to watch the movie as if it's Tyler's story and that Ed Norton is the made-up person?
Well, that's what I've been thinking about is watching it. Like, because I keep going through like, well, what is happening? How did this actually happen? What is the reality here?
The last couple of times I've watched it, I've watched as if Ed Norton is the made-up person. It's a fantastic way to watch the movie.
Well, and the thing is, I'll say this two different ways. One is they're both real. I mean, they exist.
Yes.
They have personalities. They have relationships. They have names. They have ID. And the other way I could say it is we're all made up people.
Yeah.
You know?
Exactly.
We all construct a facade that we show to the world, and that facade changes depending on who we're interacting with under what circumstances. One of them you might call the outlaw.
Yeah. You walked me right into that, and I don't appreciate it.
It just occurred to me as I was going.
Right. Well, but when you watch it that way, or when you think about this moment, also because of the idea that there's two people, like maybe Tyler Durden is the real person, and he realizes how terrible he is, and there's some piece of humanity that snaps and wants to create this other, better version of himself that he knows exists.
Yeah.
But he doesn't know how to come to terms with it.
Or he's like dangerous and and antisocial. And so he goes like, I have to shut all that stuff down
Just
and
to
become
function.
a working slob.
Right.
And not, but then that part comes out.
Right.
Because we don't actually know what the name of Ed Norton's character
that's what I'm
is.
saying.
His name could be Tyler Durden.
Yeah.
Ooh,
It's not Robert Paulson. I know that.
No. His name is Robert Paulson. And of course, what happens right at this moment where after he's brought up the name of Tyler Durden to Marla is suddenly who is sitting in the room with him? Is Tyler Durden.
And calls him out.
Yep.
Yeah.
You broke your promise.
And Tyler is shaved now.
Yeah.
He's even sexier than he was before, for lack of a better term, because Brad Pitt's a sexy fucker in this whole movie. He is sexy in this moment.
Oh, yeah.
His like bright leather pants, the sheepskin jacket or whatever he was wearing, the tank top, all of it. And the song, everything is just very like just ready to battle.
It's full on.
Yeah.
He is in full effect now.
Yeah.
And now we go through it as they're having this conversation.
Answer me, why do people think that I'm you?
I think you know.
And we flash back to these moments,
Mm-hmm.
like him sitting alone, burning his hand with the lie.
Yeah.
And he sees himself as Tyler.
This is your first night at Fight Club. You have to fight.
Little by little, you're just letting yourself become Tyler Durden.
And what Brad Pitt says is, all the things you wanted to be, that's me.
Mm-hmm.
Like I became what your fantasy.
Yeah.
And then we go and we see that, in fact, instead of fighting Tyler Durden that night outside of the bar, he was just punching himself in the face.
Yep.
Which is, by the way, the weirdest little connection in here, that there's some guys at a bar who see another guy beating the crap out of himself and says, can I have a turn?
Right.
That first guy who says, I want to punch the guy who's punching himself.
Yeah.
That's a weird moment.
It's an airplane moment.
Yeah. And the house is rented in his name. You have night jobs because you can't sleep. You're the one fucking Marla.
Mm-hmm.
And then we get to this idea of she knows too much.
I think we're going to have to talk about how this might compromise our goals.
That's a whole other turn that the movie takes, that now, Marla is in danger. And then he passes out. And I love that we say it's called a changeover.
Mm-hmm.
We get the cigarette burn. The movie goes on and nobody in the audience has any idea. That's this weird level of this movie, is that not only is the reality of the movie getting fucked with, but we're actually getting fucked with the reality of movies.
Yeah.
And that we are watching a movie. He goes home. The place is empty. And he's going, have I been Tyler longer and longer? And he remembers this idea, with enough soap, we can blow up anything. And he finds all these phone numbers. He starts calling the phone numbers to talk to security guards and supervisors. And who does he get on the phone? Just members of Project Mayhem.
It's all handled, sir.
Everything under control, sir. He runs to Marla, and I love him kind of jumping out of the cab with papers and everything falling apart. I mean, he takes her into a like a diner to get some food, and the guy waiting on them, that's Project Mayhem guy.
Yep.
Sir, anything you order is free of charge, sir.
And stay away from the clam chowder.
And Marla's flipping out about all this.
Of course, because she calls him Dr. Heckle and Mr. Jackass.
Yeah.
Which is a great, great, great line. And he's trying to explain the full extent of our relationship was not clear to me. And she tries to get out, and he's trying to explain, like, your life is in danger. And would you believe Tyler Durden at this point?
No.
Yeah. And I love her description. She says,
I tried, Tyler. I really tried.
I know you did.
There are things about you I like. You're smart, you're funny, you're spectacular in bed.
there's a great little look from Ed Norton at that moment.
But you're intolerable. You have very serious emotional problems.
And he's going like, you're not safe.
Yeah.
Bus stops. He stops the bus for her to get on. Mm-hmm. And by the way, there's a movie theater and like a movie poster. The movie theater is playing 7 Years into Bed.
Yeah, the Brad Pitt.
And I think the poster is The People versus Larry Flint.
I didn't notice the poster.
Isn't that awesome?
That's great.
And he gives her some money and say, get on the bus, but I cannot look at where the bus is going.
Right.
Which is a great little touch. Next place he goes, the police.
I need you to arrest me. I am the leader of a terrorist organization responsible for numerous acts of vandalism and assault all over the city.
And the kind of lead detective is going, okay, this is very interesting. He steps out. He's left with these other detectives.
Oh, man.
And they say,
I really admire what you're doing.
What?
You're a genius, sir.
Once again, these aren't, it isn't the upper echelon that are
No.
following him. It's the lower people, right? These are the detectives below the main detective.
And what are the orders that they've been given?
Just to circumcise him, right? Or
Not circumcise.
kill it? Is it
Castrate.
Castrate, yes, castrate. Sorry.
Circumcise was done to me
Hey,
when I was a little kid.
Me too.
It's even with an adult, it would be painful.
Yes.
Taking your testicles away is a whole other thing. Yeah.
It's a eunuch situation.
And I love his first response is, "Look, I'm not Tyler Durden." You told us you would say that.
Yeah,
and he says, "Okay, I am Tyler Durden. I order you." And they say, you told us you would say that too. But he manages to get the gun, and he and his pants are down. He's in his underwear, and he points the gun at them. And I love his line, which I think is an Ed Norton improv.
First person comes out this fucking door gets a lid salad, you understand?
That's a really funny line.
Right, because he's not going to talk tough.
No. And he runs out in his underwear, out into traffic. There's like a slow-mo shot of him that is just amazing. It's so funny what's happening. And we head off to the address where one of the bombs is going off. He gets outside the building. Who's standing in front of the building? Tyler Durden.
Well, come on then. I got us a great place to watch from. It'll be like pay-per-view.
And he can't get in through the door, which is locked. He tries to ram it open. Tyler's now on the other side of the door. He fires at Tyler Durden, shatters the glass, goes inside the building, goes down to the parking garage, finds a van, opens it up. There's a timer and a shit ton of nitroglycerin. And here's Tyler again.
Now what are you doing?
I'm stopping this.
Why? Greatest thing you've ever done, man.
No, I can't let this happen.
And now we get to the moment, which I think we talked before because we have several movies where someone had to cut the wire on the bomb right before it goes off.
Yeah.
We've had Armageddon. We've had other ones. Mm-hmm. This is a funny one because it's how do you know which one to cut? He's like, well, if you know, then I know. He's like, yeah, but maybe I just thought about the wrong one a whole bunch. But he cuts the right one. We get outside. And now he's got a gun on Tyler Durden outside the van.
So great.
And he fires on him.
Wow.
Brad Pitt's reaction is so awesome.
It's fantastic.
Wow! Okay. You are now firing a gun at your imaginary friend near 400 gallons of nitroglycerin!
And then we get in this fight, and man, the way Brad Pitt fights in this, I just love the way he throws his coat off.
Yeah.
Is great. And then he does all this Bruce Lee stuff.
Of course he would.
Yeah. And you intercut between this fight where Brad Pitt is pretty much kicking the shit out of our narrator to the security camera footage where it's just a guy beating up himself and dragging him around the...
Oh, when he throws himself down the stairs is incredible.
Oh. And after going down the stairs, we cut to where we began in the movie.
Yeah.
And we started with he was trying to think of something, which led us into this whole flashback.
Right.
And then we come back with, still can't think of anything. It's like flashback humor. Again, referencing the fact that we are really in a movie.
Yeah.
And he's Tyler's trying to convince the narrator that this is a good idea.
Think of everything we've accomplished, man. Out these windows, we will view the collapse of financial history. One step closer to economic equilibrium.
Which, and what we should say, which I don't think we said, is that the plan is to blow up all the financial institutions so that all the digital credit, money, everything goes back to zero.
Everybody's back to zero.
Yeah, which, by the way, is the same plot as Sneakers.
Oh,
which is a movie I totally like. I don't know if it's one you ever want to do.
I like that movie.
Yeah. I don't know if it's quite at the...
I don't know if it's at that level, but,
I like it.
We did Armageddon.
Yeah.
And we did Police Story, so, yeah.
Well, we'll see. And what's going to throw off this economic equilibrium? A bus pulls up, and there's Marla. And it's funny. Marla is the key turn for him at each moment.
Oh, of course.
In his life.
Right. She's the one person messing up this relationship.
Yeah.
Inadvertently.
Right. And Tyler's like just tying up loose ends.
Yeah. Which means when he was knocked out, he remembered everything that Ed Norton did and then tried to reverse everything.
Right. Yeah.
He knew exactly what bus he put her on.
Right.
How much he gave her. How far she could go in that.
And first he begs him, and then they get in this conversation of like, well, you're a voice in my head. It's like, no, you're a voice in mine.
Mm-hmm.
You're a fucking hallucination. Why can't I get rid of you?
You need me.
No, I don't.
I really don't anymore.
You created me. I didn't create some loser alter ego to make myself feel better.
Which, of course, as we said before, we don't really know if that's true.
Right.
And Tyler's like, you should be grateful. You were nothing until you had me. And he responds like, well, I am grateful, but I don't want this.
Yeah.
And it's like, yes, you do. And now we're at 60 seconds. And at 60 seconds, I'm going, as a person watching the movie, oh, we can't get out of this. We got vans in multiple buildings with bombs in them. There isn't any stopping this.
Yeah.
And our main character comes up with a solution.
I got it in your hand. I got it in my hand.
And suddenly the gun is in his hand.
Right.
And Tyler's very impressed. But I think Tyler Durden still thinks he's going to shoot him, but then no, he puts the gun in his mouth.
Yep.
And Tyler's the first time who's going like, wait, stop.
Tyler. I want you to really listen to me. Okay. My eyes are open.
And he shoots himself in the mouth.
Mm-hmm.
And then we cut to Brad Pitt, who says, what's that smell? And then we see the bullet wound in the back of his head.
Yeah.
And he falls. And that's when the elevator door opens and their guys come in with Ed and they see his smoking face and Ed stands up and they go, are you all right, sir?
Oh, yeah, I'm okay.
You look terrible, sir. What happened?
Oh, nothing. It's no problem.
Oh, no, sir. He's not kidding. You look really awful. You need medical assistance.
I'm fine.
Oh.
And they drag in Marla.
You fucker! What kind of sick fucking game are you playing at? Putting me on a fucking oh my god, your face.
It's such a weird scene.
Yeah.
And the two guys go back in the elevator and go like, man, he's a tough motherfucker.
I know, everything he does, it just gets more respect instead of being insane.
Yeah, the myth of Tyler just gets bigger and bigger. And he looks at he and Marla, he goes, look, I'm really okay. Trust me. Everything's going to be fine. Boom. We go into this montage of all those buildings collapse, and it's to a Pixie song, and it is a great dramatic musical moment.
Mm-hmm.
And the film starts to shudder as we see like the film strip like come in and out of frame. And then what's the last thing we see? A subliminal cock.
Yeah.
And that is the end of Fight Club.
Yeah, man.
By the way, in the book, the main character ends up in a mental institution.
As well he should.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't care how much. That's not how you solve the problem, is shooting it out of your brain.
So I have a question for you.
Oh, all right.
The person that says everything's going to be fine.
Yes.
Who is that?
Oh, I think it's Ed Norton at this point.
You think he's killed the Tyler Durden personality?
I think he's killed. Yeah, because Taxi Driver is correlative to this film.
Yes.
We don't get that flash of red that we get at the end
True.
of Taxi Driver. We don't get that with Tyler. But the subliminal cock, though, is something to focus on. That means maybe that's the flash of red, is the subliminal cock.
Well, I think it is. And here's the other thing that we get is he looks out over the world being destroyed.
Yeah.
Takes the hand of the woman he loves and says, everything's going to be fine.
Right.
Would Ed Norton, the Ed Norton who was desperately running to stop this, say everything's going to be fine?
I think so, because the bullet, him surviving that, changes him.
Yes.
Because if you notice, he's very in command from that point forward. With the guys, with Marla, with the situation. So to me, it's him finally realizing that he has to take some of Tyler with him. And before he kills Tyler, he has a kind of complimentary conversation with him.
Yeah.
And so then shoots, and just because he's done with it.
Here's what I think. I definitely do not think that this is the narrator. I think this is not that person.
Right.
I don't think this is Tyler Durden.
Right.
I think this is synthesis. I think this is that he is what he actually, it seems like he killed Tyler Durden.
Yeah.
But I think because he says everything's fine and we have the subliminal cock at the end, I think what he actually destroyed is the barrier between the two personalities.
Absolutely. And he did what you said earlier. He killed Tyler, his dad, and his God all in one.
Yep.
By shooting himself.
Well, and just
all three of them.
And the civilization is maybe his God, like.
No, Tyler was his God.
Yeah.
Tyler was his mentor. In my opinion, Tyler is his God. Tyler is his dad. And Tyler is Tyler.
Right.
And so him killing Tyler or trying to kill Tyler, in essence, kills all three in one shot.
Yeah.
That's just my opinion.
So the movie's finished. The studio is very worried about this movie.
Of course, they should be.
right before the movie release, there's the Columbine shooting.
Oh, Jesus, that's right.
And that sort of puts a damper on how they want to advertise it.
Forgot
They
about
have huge arguments about how to market the film.
Right.
Fincher wants like an underground marketing campaign that's weird and surreal, and the studio wants a traditional marketing campaign, which is what they do.
Starring Brad Pitt and Edward Norton.
Yeah. And it premieres at Venice Film Festival, and it's very disappointing in the box office. It has a mostly negative critical reception. There's lots of debate about what this movie means.
Very divisive movie.
It certainly touches a nerve in the male psyche, and to the point where there are fight clubs that pop up around the world, and people are like going like, yes, this is the answer.
Yeah.
And then there's some comparison to A Clockwork Orange, which I think actually is a good comparison.
That's fair, yeah.
And then there's also a real sort of politically correct leftist reaction, which is that this is a fascist, violent film.
Fantasy, yeah.
And it's one of those movies, we've now had a bunch of these, which it becomes a hit on home media.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you don't, and I don't want to shirk. I think we should also mention it's a huge backlash in the feminist community and
Absolutely,
women
yeah.
who I think Ann Coates wrote a whole thing about this, and there's a number of articles, and I read a bunch of these articles just to have another take on this, because I love this movie to pieces. It appeals to a lot of my masculinity, inherent masculinity. You know what I'm saying? And so when you read it from a woman's point of view and see what they have to say, and especially these learned women who know how to write and understand how to dissect and analyze a movie like this, it's fascinating to see their point of view on it. And I don't disagree with a lot of their points, but I still love the movie in spite of it.
Well, I mean, maybe this is ruining my final thoughts a little bit, but I think what is great about this movie is to see it as an argument and a discussion.
Yes.
This is a challenging movie.
Yeah.
And part of what makes it challenging is there's some fucked up shit in this movie.
It's very divisive.
And being offended by some of the shit in this movie is correct.
It's the point.
Yeah. And what's difficult about the movie is the way it seduces you.
Yes.
So I have a whole complicated, because one thing people don't know about this show is every once in a while, for one reason or another, we start a recording about a show and then we don't have time to finish it. And this is one where I had to run out, I had a thing to do, and so it's actually 2 weeks. There was a 2-week break between when we started and when we finished it. And unfortunately, that 2 weeks gave me a lot more time to think about this film.
Holy shit! So we're not done with the movie.
No, because there's something else. This will this will kind of lead into our final thoughts.
Okay.
And maybe we'll see how it all kind of plays out. But here's the thing that I was thinking about is that I think that Fight Club fits into a very strong tradition within American art and literature.
Okay.
That has to do with breaking bonds with society.
Sure.
And in particular, the man going off on his own. And you could see this in Hemingway. You can see this in, Ralph Ellison's Invisible Man. You can see this with Moby Dick. You could see this with all of this history of literature that is about society is corrupt. It is terrible. Or like movie like Mosquito Coast is another one that occurs to me.
Yeah.
And therefore we have to break ties with society or Into the Wild. And, there's so many movies.
Captain Fantastic.
Yeah.
If you haven't seen that yet, that has.
I have not. But there's so many movies where it's like we have to break off ties with this and go outside of the rules of society and test ourselves in these certain ways. And that's how we're going to find out who we really are. And what I was thinking about is that all this goes back to Henry David Thoreau and Walden. And I know that making a comparison between Thoreau and Fight Club might sound crazy, but I want to read you some Walden quotes.
Okay.
And just see if you can hear these coming out of the mouth of Tyler Durden, if the language is a little different. The mass of men lead lives of quiet desperation.
Yes.
That is a Tyler Durden line. I went to the woods because I wanted to live deliberately, to front only the essential facts of life and see if I could not learn what it had to teach. And when I came to die, discover that I had not lived. You could see him like stripping down. To live in that house is stripping down life to its essentials.
Yes.
Not until we are lost do we begin to understand ourselves. That's right out of Fight Club, isn't it?
Yeah.
It is not enough to be busy. So are the ants. The question is, what are we busy about? The price of anything is the amount of. The price of anything is the amount of life you exchange for it. That's like you don't own your things. Your things end up owning you. Disobedience is the true foundation of liberty. The obedient must be slaves. It's right out of Tyler Durden. Our inventions are wont to be pretty toys which distract our attention from serious things. They are but improved means to an unimproved end. This is all like Tyler Durden stuff, you know, is that the idea of the society that is keeping you down and the need to test yourself and the need to strip everything away and to lose everything and to find truth, that seems to be an essential principle to the American psyche that has flowed through literature forever.
Well, it's the constant, how can I say this correctly? It's the constant change, isn't it? Because eventually Thoreau came back to society, came back to civilization. So we have to do these occasional trips out into these places, maybe, if we are any kind of self-reflective person, in order to test ourselves. And some men can do this, or people rather, irrelevant of gender, can go out into these areas and purposefully cut themselves off from everything and explore what happens to them and what comes up for them. And they hope they learn something that they can bring back into society for themselves to deal with society or civilization better. But, you know, we acclimate. It's easy to think about civilization or where you're going to go or what you're going to do when you go out there because there's no one there to distract you or test you. To me, that's like practice. And civilization is the game. Going out there and cutting yourself off is you training around orange cones and doing all this kind of stuff. But once you come back to play the game, can you apply what you learned in practice to the game? And a lot of people get lost in the game, get overwhelmed by the game, and then have to pull themselves out to go practice again. And so it's the constant thing that happens over and over again, I think.
It's funny that I think the way of looking at it as practice, I think that's a really healthy way to look at it. And I think what we see in Fight Club is a really unhealthy way to look at it.
Yeah.
You know, is like there's a moment, because another one that this relates to is Apocalypse Now. Is that, and there's a moment when we just, because Apocalypse Now is Kurtz has decided, has seen the ills of society, he's seen the madness of it, and his response is, therefore, you must be mad. Like, that's the only way to deal with this. And I remember when we did our podcast, which is still one of my favorites, is there's a moment where you kind of challenged me. And it was to say like, well, what did I really think? And I somehow throughout the podcast, I kind of withheld what I thought without thinking about it. And so it's so great that you challenged me. And it's like, no, Kurtz is a monster. You know, he's an evil person. He's taken this great observation and his charisma and his intelligence, and he's used it towards evil. And that is what is actually happening in Fight Club. You know, is that, and this is, you said it earlier, that this is a cult. And if you look at, and what a cult does is it takes some truths and some positive things. You know, it's like what happens to, there's all these stages when you find the wisdom. You know, when you find the great thing, you find religion in whatever way, whether it's doing yoga or doing martial arts or 12-step programs or a political movement or a social movement or hippies or communists or whatever, is that you go, this is it. I found the answer. And you're following a charismatic leader. And sort of the next thing that happens is you go, well, I found the answer. I got to get everyone else to believe this.
Yeah.
And you start trying to persuade people. And that's in the movie where they're like, your assignment is to pick a fight and to lose.
Yeah.
Is they're trying to bring other people in to what the answer is. And this is the first place where it's trouble, because it's sort of like, look, that might be the answer for you.
Right.
But that ain't the answer for me. And then the other thing that happens is when you found a thing that solves your life, then you start to believe all the other stuff that's attached to that thing as the truth. So even though it was actually having the Fight Club and having that physical experience, that really changed your life. But then Tyler Durden says the problem is the banks and the corporations, and the problem is this, and the problem is that, and the problem is your father, and the problem is all that. And that you go, well, if this thing was true that changed my life, then all the other stuff was true.
Right.
You know, so if it is true that the Russian royalty is oppressing the serfs, well, then everything else within the communist doctrine must be true, you know, and that's when you start doing horrible, horrible things. And you look at every revolution, or not every revolution, but all these violent revolutions, there are good reasons why the Russian Revolution and the Iranian Revolution or the French Revolution happened.
Sure.
But then those things went to chaos and madness because they followed their charismatic leaders and their ideas to the end. And that is what's happening in Fight Club. And this is why I actually don't find it to be, even though there are a bunch of people doing things that maybe are what would be called toxic masculinity, to me, it is an indictment of all of those things as they are taken to the nth degree. And that's why it's a really interesting movie. So you start with Thoreau saying these beautiful things, but you end up with blowing up the world.
Right. Which ultimately is the end of every revolution.
Yeah.
Is blowing up whatever the societal world that has been constructed that you're rebelling against. And I think that's why the American Revolution is such a an anomaly.
It is.
It is not it is the exception to the rule of revolutions because it was not led by one man. It was multiple people of wealth, of power, yes, of landowning, whatever, but they had agreed to be unanimous. That's incredible. Right? It wasn't John Hancock. It wasn't George Washington. It wasn't just Benjamin Franklin. It was Franklin and Adams and all these people involved in the North and the South who came together at the Congress, made this decision, said it had to be unanimous, argued over everything that was in the Declaration of Independence, and then at the end finally made the decision as a whole to go against Britain. And still there were people who held out and fought for the British who had been American or were American and fought against fellow Americans in the country during the time. So that's the anomaly. Usually it's led by one person, then the person gets too powerful and then gets suspicious and becomes a paranoid person about people around them. We saw that with Lenin and Trotsky. You see this with multiple Robespierre in the French Revolution. Like all of it is there. So that's why the American Revolution is such an anomaly. And this film has nothing to do with the American Revolution. That's what I'm saying. It's like because it's one man.
I'll give you one other reason, just because you brought it up, which is that I'm really fascinated by, which is Alexei de Tocqueville in Democracy in America, which is one of those books you're always supposed to have read. And I think I finally read it like 2 years ago.
Read it in high school for history class.
The thing that he says that I think is so brilliant about the American Revolution is that everywhere else where you saw a revolution happen, where there was chaos and violence and bloodshed after, are in places where it was really one group oppressing another group. And the group being oppressed had no experience in governance.
Right.
Whereas in the American Revolution is unique because the colonies had essentially been governing themselves. They had police departments and they had military, they had post offices, they had, tax systems, they had legislatures and all this stuff that, although that was all under the auspices of King George, they were still really doing the job. And those people continued to do the job after, as opposed to in the French Revolution, you wiped out everybody who had been in governance. And now you had all these people with no experience in governance who were really, really, really angry. And anybody who kind of looked like they were connected to, the French king, the French aristocracy, well, they were going to get their heads cut off. And so, and you look at the Iranian Revolution, you look at all these other, or the Communist Revolution, Soviet Revolution, it's the same thing. We have to wipe out everybody that was involved in ruling the country. And now you got a whole bunch of people who have to rule the country with no experience ruling a country, and that's not what happened in the American Revolution.
Exactly.
So I know that was maybe a long journey.
It was enjoyable.
Yeah. Do you have final thoughts on Fight Club?
Yeah, this is such a great film to revisit for so many reasons. Like even if you just break it down to just being a film about this idea of two separate people who one knows there's another version of themselves, the other one doesn't, and you watch this progression through the whole film, the way it's shot, the cinematography, the darkness, it borders on noir at times, the grittiness of it. It's a very manly movie, and I enjoy that as a change of pace, right? I feel that about the movie, and it's enjoyable in that way. Great performances all around. This is Brad Pitt at his physical peak. This is Edward Norton at his acting peak, you could argue, and Helena Bonham Carter before she ended up going into these other kinds of roles as an elder statesman in a way as an actress. So there's so much about this that's enjoyable. It's funny, and it still makes these incredible points about society, about governments, about our own pacts that we make with ourselves in order to function within the world, with our bosses, with our fellow people who work like ants building this thing. There's so much about it that tries to rip open what's supposed to happen or what society is. And I love how much it explores it. In the end, was Tyler Durden right or wrong? It's up to you to decide. I like the fact that it's a film about action on both sides, and that this is a man who starts this whole process, if you go from the Edward Norton point of view, because he's unhappy with his life. He understands, he's self-aware. He's becoming self-aware. He understands that his life is already planned out for him, and he can see his grave even, and all this stuff that he sees, like he's buying the IKEA stuff, that's all him making this pact with society in order to fit in. And this other part of him is created to rebel because it does not feel like the right thing to do, and there can be a better existence. And so that's what the film really does, in my opinion, what it accomplishes really, really well. And Fincher and Poliniak have really come together to create a phenomenal film along with the actors.
So I totally agree with all that. For me, I would say the first thing is that technically, in terms of the craftsmanship of filmmaking, this is a masterpiece.
Yes.
I mean, they just, in terms of the way shots are put, this is like, you can study this for weeks to understand how films actually work, because it deconstructs the film in so many different ways, in terms of the narration, in terms of the imagery, in terms of the intercutting, in terms of, Tyler Durden talking to camera, in terms of the flashbacks, in terms of talking about filmmaking, the cigarette burns and all that, and the use of sound design, of music. This is a top-notch crafted film. The next thing is, I think this has a ton to say about, that Thoreau quote of the mass of men lead lives of quiet desperation. I think the world that Ed Norton describes, that's how a lot of us feel a lot of the time. And the need to break out of that world, I think this film is so profound in talking about it. And then it goes into this world of madness, and it goes into, well, wait, how far do we take these things? And the other thing, which we have to say about this movie, is that depending on your point of view, this movie's really funny.
Yeah.
It is a black comedy.
Absolutely.
In the same way Dr. Strangelove is about some horrible, horrible stuff, and it's really funny. So that's what we think about Fight Club. I hope you have survived this epic journey through this film. Of course, we always want to hear what you think. Please visit us on our Facebook page. Do a search for the Cine-Files. You can subscribe to us on iTunes or YouTube or Stitcher, a whole bunch of other places. Please leave reviews on iTunes. Leave comments on Stitcher. If you want to suggest a film, you can do so on our Patreon page, patreon.com/thecine-files. And as always, you can reach me at SR Morris on Twitter. John, where can they reach you?
You guys can always reach me at The Roca Says on Twitter and Instagram. See all the shows I'm a part of and all the stuff I'm doing over at Collider, and some other surprises coming down the road.
Ooh, surprises.
Yes.
I think that's it for this week. You'll have to tune in to find out about those surprises next time on the Cine-Files.